Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder.
And if you are returning, welcome back. If you're new, what we do is we start off with some box office talk, and then we get into our reviews. Something relatively new or newer, and then something older and usually a classic, although this week it's not so much a classic.
Yeah. Man, there are at least two different mummy movies we could be talking about instead, but I just had to be morbidly curious.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, so let's go ahead and get started with box office.
So, before we talk about the box office yet to come,
Mhm.
a couple of interesting things stood out to me about this week's box office.
Okay.
First off, Daniel, you pointed this out to me. I hadn't realized. Uh,
Mhm.
so while Taylor Swift is continuing to make money, it's actually more concentrated than I thought because it's not being shown every day of the week.
Yeah, it's only really on like Friday on the weekends, occasionally on Thursdays.
Yeah, like Halloween got a showing of it.
Yeah. So
S- So that might explain part of that actually explains why it keeps really winning at the weekends because there isn't the rest of the week to dilute demand.
right. Yeah.
It came in at second this week.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Five Nights at Freddy's really took a nosedive last week, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if that's just a case of everybody who wanted to see it has seen it, and now they're just going to wait for it on digital or 4K.
I mean, the fact that you can go get yourself a what do you call it account, Peacock account right
Peacock.
now, watch it cannot be helping.
That's true. Yeah. And good to see you as always, Ninja.
Hey, Ninja.
Um, but yeah, yeah, it probably would be a little higher if it wasn't on Peacock, but yeah.
Right. I mean that Universal keeps doing that to their horror movies. Last year, what was it? It wasn't Friday
Uh,
the 13th.
it
They
was
had
Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah, they had a
Yeah.
Halloween movie do day and date. It's like only these horror movies and only with Universal. It's a strange choice.
Yeah, and also Blumhouse noticed too for some reason because those are all done by Blumhouse. It's and oh, good. That's good to hear, Ninja. I'm very happy you got your Guardian Angel
Well,
copy.
sweet.
Yeah,
I checked my mail earlier and it hasn't shown up for me yet, but
yeah,
uh, I know it's coming.
yes.
Um, Although I did get my digital copy, but I'm gonna wait to read the real thing.
Yeah, okay. And,
That's
but yeah, it's interesting that they're only doing that with the horror movies. I guess they figure since they're relatively inexpensive to make that they're not too worried about it.
mhm.
So
Y-
yeah,
yeah, that's a reasonable theory. Like it's like, well, I mean, it's 25 million, so they're not going to lose money on it.
yeah,
So that could be Universal's strategy to try to prop up Peacock a bit.
yeah,
We have talked before in the past, like Hollywood only seems to want to make superhero movies and horror movies, and one of those might be going away pretty quick.
yeah, yeah. If the rumors are of the Marvels underperformance start to be believed, which I think they are.
Yeah. That's here. Rounding out our top five, we've got Killer of the Flower Moon at number three. Still with its Marvel-sized budget, it cracked 50 million in the states. That's a thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's actually bigger internationally, which is a real surprise, actually, because it's a very American story. Like, it's
Yeah. I wonder if that's Leonardo DiCaprio and
oh
Martin
yeah,
Scorsese having something to do with that.
yeah. The biggest markets are definitely biggest in Europe,
Yeah. Yeah, UK, France. Yeah.
Germany. Okay, that tracks.
Mm.
Does not appear to have gotten a China release, but what does these days?
Yeah, that's true. Ninja says he's going to be watching a Peacock movie next month with Monk Last Case. I didn't know they made a Monk movie. Huh.
Didn't the actor die?
No, I think he's still alive.
Uh, to
Let
the
me look.
internets.
Yes, to the internets. Let's see, Monk.
No, he is not.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought. Oh, he's my parents' age. Okay, he just turned 70, so yeah.
Oh, I thought I'd heard. Oh, I typed it in wrong and it somehow got meatloaf. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, good for him. I thought I'd heard that he died like 10 years ago. So,
yeah.
um,
But yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I wonder what the future will hold for Marty and Leo teaming up again.
yeah. I mean, really, how many movies does he have left in him at his age? Not to be grim, but
Yeah, he's got to be late 70s, I would think, early 80s. Yeah. Although Clint Eastwood was directing movies when he was pushing 90, so
yeah. And apparently, he only really stopped because, like, he came out with some cowboy movie. There, some movie last year, a couple years back, that didn't make any money. It sounds like people at Warner Brothers said, "Yeah, we don't care what kind of history we have with this guy. We aren't throwing away money on movies that don't make money anymore."
yeah. And yeah, it's Tony Shalhoub is the actor's name.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, and then what?
Priscilla.
Priscilla,
That's a biopic based on the
Priscilla Presley.
biography. Yeah,
Yeah,
which okay. Did not grow up in an Elvis household. You
I
know,
didn't either. Yeah,
my only real exposure to Elvis was like general pop culture, and that was mostly just like jokes about his voice, Johnny Bravo being an Elvis impersonator,
yeah,
lots of I know that lots of jokes about Elvis impersonators in Vegas, etc. I knew he was drafted because my parents explained the plot of Bye Bye Birdie to me, since that's just a take on that.
yeah. And he died on the toilet. Yeah,
Okay, now he had this ridiculous sandwich he was eating multiple times a day that was like 3,000 calories a pop, or
yeah. Well, it was like
peanut butter and
it was peanut butter. I think it was like peanut butter, banana, and something, and it was deep fried. Yeah,
let's find out. Peanut
and he
butter, banana, and bacon sandwich.
yeah, and,
Just
and yeah, deep. And I want to say it was deep fried, like a Monte Cristo.
let's find out. The sandwich may All recipe says the sandwich may sound unappealing, but it's actually very tasty, especially on cold days.
uh,
Have teaspoon butters, cover this slice of bread. Okay, so you put butter on the outside of the sandwich, so you kind of grilled cheese it a little bit.
oh, okay, okay. And he would also shoot a revolver at the TV when he'd get mad.
Oh, that one joke from The Simpsons was like based on something real.
Yes, he really did that. Yeah.
I remember watching the commentary for the bit, like Grandpa Simpson supposedly wrote the episode of Itchy and Scratchy. Then
Yeah.
they at the end of it they had the Elvis looking like guy. Oh, that ain't no good. And he shoots
Yeah.
at the TV.
Yeah.
Uh, apparently in the script, because they were worried about the Elvis estate going after them, they had to refer to him as Southern Gentleman.
Yeah.
It was we were wildly off track.
Yeah.
Priscilla, Alan over at Film Threat said the movie was kind of one note,
Mm,
which, okay, I mean, you get down to it, just from the sounds of it, her life was she met Elvis at a very, very young age,
hmm.
and that's kind of awkward to start with.
Yeah.
But like compared to Elvis himself, like how interesting could her life be outside of
Yeah.
being kind of an accessory?
Yeah, and or being in Scientology. Yeah.
Oh, see, I didn't know about that. Uh,
Yeah.
I guess I kind of tuned out on the on his review too. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
sure, it's
so was yeah, Lisa
sure it's a
Marie
fine
was
movie.
oh yeah, yeah. Lisa Marie was in there too in Scientology.
Oh,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah.
But you know who wasn't probably in Scientology? The
Mm,
teacher that stars in Radical, which is about a
uh,
Mexican teacher who who is dealing with a bunch of Mexican sixth graders.
probably not. No.
That sounds like just a fun inspirational movie
Yes. Yeah.
or a depressing inspirational movie. You
Yeah.
know, like there's only a few types of movies that actually make about teachers in disadvantaged areas.
Yeah, like oh, that the one with Edward James Olmos. Uh uh um
How can I reach these kids?
Keys. Yeah.
We talked
Yeah.
last week about how South Park lives rent free in our brains as soon as
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Cartman.
Richard Cartman is yes. Oh,
All right.
jeez.
Meanwhile, the rest of the top 10 isn't anything we haven't talked about. Uh, there are a couple of other ones here. What happens later? Just it's a rom com. I already forget who is in it. Meg
Did
Ryan and David Duchovny.
yes.
And I read the premise and I was immediately bored.
Yeah.
It just sounds like it's opposite attract rom com.
Yes, and sounds like a couple of people who needed a paycheck.
Yeah, yeah. Those X Files
Nope.
re-releases didn't really do that well,
No, they didn't.
but they did better than the new Daisy Ridley movie, The Marsh King's Daughter. Did
Ooh.
crack $1 million.
Ouch.
And I'm going to read this premise off, and you can tell me why this movie didn't appeal to a larger audience.
All
Although it
right.
might be that they didn't market it. A, a woman with a secret past will venture into the wilderness she left behind to confront the most dangerous man she's ever met, her father. Helena's seemingly ordinary life hides a dark and dangerous truth. Her estranged father is the infamous Marsh King, the man who kept her and her mother captive in the wilderness for years. When her father escapes from prison, Helena will need to confront her past. Knowing that he will hunt for her and her family, Helena must find the strength to face her demons and outmaneuver the man who taught her everything she knows about surviving in the wild.
So it's like gender swap first blood, but
I
with a
guess.
with like a serial killer angle to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ninja, I think sums up best. Daddy issues the movie didn't care. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. One thing that's interesting here is if we go down into the bottom, Oppenheimer actually beat Barbie because they did some sort of re-release into 1,000 theaters.
Oh wow.
Mind you, it still barely cracked 500,000, but hey, you know.
Yeah.
Also, Gran Turismo got into another 1,000 theaters somehow.
Wow. Huh.
Um, I believe that this is a sign that there isn't a whole lot to actually show right now.
Right. Yeah. uh.
Considering they had to move Dune and
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which yeah, Dune was supposed to come out last week, wasn't it?
yeah, sometime in November, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody pointed out it actually pushed the Marvels out of IMAX because the IMAX theaters wanted to show Dune and they didn't want to show Marvels, but then they moved Dune back so that Marvels got an IMAX. Uh,
Yeah.
Although I don't know if that's going to help the Marvels any.
I mean, it won't hurt, but
Mm.
um, then the other one that I thought was kind of interesting further on down the list, the anime movie that I reviewed earlier this year, Suzume, actually has been back in theaters for a couple of weeks now.
Mm.
Which that's kind of a random choice.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, it's like that. Although noticing there's a lot of Sony in this bottom track here, so maybe someone at Sony is like say Gran Turismo, like hey, hey theater operators, what's the
yeah,
what else do you have
yeah.
to show?
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of product coming out, so can you just reshow our stuff from earlier this year? Okay.
Yeah, like I know that you don't make as much off the box office if it already has been released elsewhere.
Mm.
But seriously feel like that with this strike situation and like nothing, like Disney is not releasing a single movie after the Marvels until April, apparently.
Well, when Wish is coming out later this year, isn't it?
Excuse me, After Wish, After
After
Wish.
Wish. Okay, yeah, yeah,
That's right, that's right. I keep forgetting that Wish exists.
yeah. I do too. Yeah.
Like I actually went up, I went online and I heard that one of the villain song was trending on TikTok or something, but it sounded like it was trending because everybody was making fun of it. Because and after poking at a couple of the songs,
Yeah.
it seriously sounds like somebody uh, asked Chat GPT to make a musical that's like Frozen but set in Spain.
Probably.
Like what was it? Chris Pine is the villain,
Oh,
uh,
really? Huh.
and what? Okay, so have you ever seen the musical My Fair Lady?
I haven't, no, but I know what it's about. Yeah.
So I want to say was it Rex Harrison who was in that?
Yes, Rex Harrison. Yeah.
The man
And
could not sing.
yeah.
This is a problem because My Fair Lady is a musical.
Yes.
So they actually had to kind of rewrite it so he could just kind of talk tonally through the songs. Um,
Uh,
fun fact: that's also like uh, Seth MacFarlane's impression of Rex Harrison in that movie is what Stewie is.
yeah. They even did an episode of Family Guy where they spoofed My Fair Lady.
Ah, uh, oh, I remember that one now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what the Chris Pine villain song that's been circulating around on online reminded me of when I listened to it.
Oh. Oh,
But
jeez.
yeah, but anyway, it seems to me that there's a lot of stuff that came out straight to streaming during the pandemic that if there's like I feel like anytime there's a gap in the that people have forgotten about or weren't aware of because it was put on a streaming service that wasn't well targeted at the time.
Yeah.
It seems to me that even if half of something is better than twice of nothing, right? Like
Yeah.
even if the theater only wants to give you a 25% cut because I don't know, Coming to America 2 is sitting on Amazon streaming or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
Cut a
Yeah.
deal, man. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ninja asks if we've watched the Craven the Hunter trailer. Yes.
Yeah. Um, my overall take on that is that it looks like the best take you could do on a kind of a rotten idea.
Yeah. Pretty
Because
much.
like a revenge story against his father is probably the only way you could make Craven the protagonist. Kind of the same way that in Morbius, the only way you could make Morbius the protagonist was to set him up against somebody worse.
Yes. And of course, we know how Morbius turned out.
More of that noise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jeez.
I do have the sneaking suspicion that Craven the Hunter will be better than Morbius, but that is a very low bar to clear.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, indeed.
Just because it won't have what's his name sleepwalking his way through the movie.
Oh yeah, Jared Leto.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
well,
So we've talked about the ghost of box office past. Let's take a look
mhm.
at the ghost of box office present, because even as we speak right now, there are audiences allegedly somewhere in the world who are getting to watch the or who have excuse me, audiences who have allegedly paid money to go see the Marvels.
Yes, some of them I've seen on Twitter, including Drinker, who was not too happy about having to sit through a musical number.
Yeah, like every review I've heard of this. Okay, actually no, I saw one positive review from Grace Randolph, who I don't think I've ever actually agreed with her on a single take on a single piece of media.
Yeah, I don't think I have either.
Said she went in hoping it wasn't too bad, but smiled the whole time, which that by itself kind of tells me stay away.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I just loved Captain Marvel so much. I've been so looking forward to seeing this movie.
I know, right?
Yeah. uh,
I could think of a lot of movies that I'd be willing to. Actually, I will admit there was a part of me that almost said, let me take my dad and let's go see this weekend, and then I can do a review of it for the show. But life is too short, man.
yeah.
Like just on the sounds of it. All right, so I would say that as incoherent as it was in places, the Flash had emotional beats to
Yeah.
go with it, and some of those emotional beats landed. Yeah, like I think every review I've seen complimented the beat around Flash and his mother.
Yeah.
And like if you kind of ignore that Batman was acting kind of dumb in that last fight, you know, seeing the last stand of that version of Batman was kind of where he was actually able to like
Mhm.
take on the big bulky guy a bit
Right. Yeah.
was
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Like there were neat ideas.
Mhm.
There's not I've heard a detailed plot breakdown of this. There's not a single thing here that sounds like it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, it doesn't start like in media res in the action. It apparently starts with like, with more or less a tacit admission. We know that you didn't watch the Disney Plus shows. Here's who Monica Rambeau and Kamala Khan are.
Yeah. Well, at least they were kind enough to do that.
Yeah. Um, I think that the great multimedia experiment of the MCU has failed miserably.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, doing those Disney Plus shows was a mistake.
I would say that the one that makes the most sense that has just fallen down the memory hole is Moon Knight, because Moon Knight doesn't connect to anything. It's
Hmm.
or that Werewolf by Night special,
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
or What If. Those are sensible MCU things. Where hey, maybe if Moon Knight really takes off, he can show up
Mhm.
in the next Avengers or something as a
Yeah.
not. By the way, here's your homework, kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was what was nice about the Netflix shows was that you didn't have to watch those to know what was going on in the movies.
Right, or vice versa even.
Right. Yeah.
It it's I think the problem with that is that they took the comic book experience as the model
Hmm.
when even the comic book experience can burn people out if you do it too much.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially when you have all the crossovers between the characters, like it just
Right.
you know you know, like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. It's like it wasn't a Doctor Strange movie. It was a
Hmm.
Scarlet Witch movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, And the other thing is you do too many crossovers. Have you ever read the comic book of Spider-Man Wolverine from the 80s?
No, I haven't.
I picked it up on Kindle a while back for I think it's like $1.
Okay.
Uh, I'd read it in the library ages and ages ago. It's a graphic novel, and it was actually like it's weird to think of a time period where there was a first time that Spider-Man and Wolverine had a just a crossover with the two of them.
Yeah.
Because like they'd met in some big events like Secret Wars, but never just one on one.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny to like it was kind of neat actually that the funny and neat that the two of them didn't know each other at all. And Wolverine actually was having to wonder, is Spider-Man KGB? Because like why else is he here in Germany
Yeah.
tracking the same thing I am?
Yeah.
And it was just kind of refreshing. And I realized that when you have so many crossovers,
Yeah.
it kind of they lose their effect after a while.
Yeah. And Ninja says there's the reason why older comic books are better written than newer ones. They cross over less often. Each crossover gave enough detail to move the plot forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I've been here. 60 million sounds like what the official estimate is for the Marvels. For some
Hmm.
reason, my gut tells me 45.
Yeah. Um, that sounds about right for this movie. Um,
Because I mean, if we look at the Flash,
yeah.
which it's from everything I've been hearing, it's actually like the pre-sales and tracking are worse than what they got for the Flash and Black Adam.
Ooh.
What did the Flash open up to?
I don't know. Yeah.
I want to say 50 something. 55. Okay.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's not going to touch the Flash just because,
Yeah.
like as far as crossover appeals, it's like, oh, Kelsey Grammer Beast at the end of the Marvels. Oops, sorry, spoilers. Because the Beast from okay, we love Kelsey Grammer here on this show, but
Yeah.
he was not in the best X-Men movie.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, which is unfortunate. Uh, although
Like he,
he was perfect as Beast, I thought.
yeah, he's like the Henry Cavill of X-Men 3,
Yeah.
stuck in bad movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Brie Larson is like she has not done anything illegal like Ezra Miller has, but she's some sort of online infamous.
Yeah, she's unlikable. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's her
e-
problem. Yeah, it's just like
es-
nobody likes her, you know.
especially as that character.
Yeah. It's
And then you have two characters who debuted in MCU shows. Every review I've heard of this thing says that Kamala Khan is the only bright spot.
yeah, that's what I'm hearing too. Yeah, and that's what everybody when I've been hearing about with Miss Marvel is that they really liked her in that. You know, even if the show wasn't very good.
Right, and I've known people who liked that show a lot. I watched like half of the first episode and said, "This is aggressively not for me," on just a few levels.
Yeah.
Because it's Disney tween sitcom level to start with. It's
Yeah.
like that isn't a knock against people who like that type of thing. It's just not my jam.
Yeah, same here. And I think the Marvels is probably same way.
Yeah, it just sounds like a mess.
Yeah.
Film Thread has a good review on it, and well, we know that we're going to get a sarcastic Scotsman drinking his way through it critically.
Yeah.
And then in like 3 months, we'll get the Angry Mauler 5-hour breakdown review.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who knows, maybe the quartering will get to build himself another Brie Larson shed.
Yes.
Which, for those of you not in the know, I remember watching a video many years ago where he actually debuted a shed for his backyard that he bought with the money from all of his Brie Larson videos.
Yes. Yeah.
and just says, "I'm happy that Kamala is the best part of the film." Which, if this bombs, like, is Marvel just going to admit, okay, this whole Ms. Marvel experiment we've been running for the last 10 years has not paid off? Because they turned the Avengers video game in part into a story about her
Yeah.
as the POV character. And boy, was she obnoxious in that.
It's,
Like,
well, I didn't play the game, so I can't comment.
it was on Game Pass, and there was like bonus rewards points if you did some things in it. So I gave it a shot, and you first go through a tutorial mission that's kind of clever because it's like Ms. Marvel at a superhero fan convention, and they introduce the different game elements as like a bunch of what do you call it?
Uh,
Uh, a circuit, like not carnival games. That's it.
oh, okay, yeah.
It's like that. That's how you like learn the shooting mechanics and things like that.
No.
But I found her really insufferable, so I kept skipping her scenes or walking out of the room when she was talking to her dad or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I finally got to play an Avenger, the game feel just wasn't good in my opinion, so I
Mm,
gave up on it pretty quick.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, like Ms. Marvel's not a headline character, unfortunately. Um, no matter how charming this actress is, just they haven't been able to make fetch happen consistently.
Yeah.
I don't even think she has a comic book. No, that's right. She has a comic book right now because they killed her in Spider-Man in a desperate attempt to
That's
get
right.
attention, and then they reincarnated her as a mutant
That's
to
right.
try to get rid of the whole Inhumans angle that always was kind of like she was like the last Inhuman that was actually operating in the Marvel universe. Because when they were trying to deprecate the X-Men, they did this whole big push of Inhuman characters
Oh,
in like the
oh,
early 2010s.
oh, yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I put my stake in it. I'm predicting 45 million domestic open from Ms. Marvel. We'll see how right I am.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to see how right he is, tune in next week.
Yep. But so now we're done talking about uh, you know money being spent on movies. Let's talk about the quality of a couple of movies we watched this week ourselves.
Yes.
And we have a choice. Do we
Mm.
get our vegetables out of the way first, or do we talk about the one that we both enjoyed?
Uh, let's mix it up. Let's eat our vegetables first.
Yes. Okay. And what rotten vegetables they are.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, so you were saying before the show that we had a choice of three mummy movies, and we picked the worst one of the three.
Yeah. Yeah, and that isn't even counting that Hammer horror must have
Yeah.
had some knockoff mummy movies, probably with Grand Moff Tarkin in it somewhere,
Oh yeah,
or Christopher
yeah.
Lee,
Christopher Lee. Yeah.
which would have instantly made them better than this.
Oh yeah.
And Holy Ninja asked the obvious question: why?
Yes.
The answer is morbid curiosity.
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so uh, the the mummy I kept hearing was like the most uh so Universal had the original cinematic universe back in the day
Right.
because they had all these interconnected Mummy and Frankenstein and Wolfman
Dracula.
movies. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dracula. And like a good cinematic universe, this wasn't planned from the jump. They just said, all these horror movies that we keep coming up with are very popular. What if we had the Wolfman meet Dracula?
Yeah.
Or what if we had Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein's monster?
Yeah.
Which that also is that one's a good movie. That one's actually in canon enough with the other movies in the series. And have you ever seen the old Wolfman?
No, I haven't.
He is like the most sincere human being on the planet. Like he's just so soulful and tortured and good in every scene. Just
uh,
he was a great actor. Um,
yeah.
uh, so as this whole Marvel cinematic universe thing got started, Universal saw dollar signs because they said, "Wait a second, we know how to tie movies together." It turned out they didn't.
And yeah, they did. No, they did not. Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
yeah, and Ninja agrees with you. He loves Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. Yeah.
yeah, but this the Mummy was not the first attempt they made at making their shared monster universe happen. I want to say it
Mm.
was Dracula Untold was, or there was some other Frankenstein movie in the 2010s.
Yeah, there was Dracula Untold, and then there was the Frankenstein movie with Harvey Dent from The Dark Knight.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, then they
Neither of those took off.
no, then neither one of them took off. Yeah.
So they said, well, we need to rethink this. Who's been really successful rethinking and reimagining old franchises?
Mm.
Hmm. Hey, Alex Kurtzman, we like what you did with Star Trek, where you basically turned it into Star Wars but dumb.
Yeah. Oh, Ninja says Dracula Untold was retrofitted as the start of it. Oh, okay.
Well, good for them.
Yes.
Um, but so Alex Kurtzman is responsible for this travesty,
Yeah, yes. As he is responsible for most travesties, including what he's done to Star Trek.
and the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes, and Transformers.
Keep forgetting he's responsible for Transformers.
Yeah.
God, can someone get like a restraining order for him and non-original properties? Let let him ruin his own stuff. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Wasn't he also responsible for that Clarice series that apparently Universal was really pissed off that it didn't actually do well?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That was him. Yeah.
Yeah. Do not let him adapt things.
Yes. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Keep this man away from established franchises, please.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
but
So let's talk about this thing itself. And you might
okay.
be saying, DB and Daniel, you're being too mean right now. I mean, after all, uh, it, you're bringing in all this meta commentary stuff. You aren't even giving the movie a chance. First off, we did give the movie a fair shot.
Hmm.
Second off, the movie is also uninterested in standing on its own two legs, own two feet.
Yes. Uh,
Ninja says, "Hey there, I like the ASM films. They have problems, but they're not the Mummy 2017." I will give you the first Amazing Spider-Man film. The
yeah.
second one is basically, in my mind, the Mummy 2017.
Yes, it was. Yeah, because they were trying to set up a lot of stuff, including the Sinister Six, which never happened.
Nope. And with the performance of Morbius and what I suspect will be a drubbing for Craven, they are not going to make fetch happen there.
No.
So I tried to make this joke on Sunday when I was watching the movie, but apparently since Chat GPT draws from the internet, it I basically did the joke, hey Chat GPT, make a remake of Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, set it in 2017 in Iraq. And of course it partially drew from this movie for it, but its proposal actually had Brendan Fraser showing up again, which would have automatically made this better.
Yeah. Yes, it would. Although I logistically, I don't know how that would have worked because his character would be well over 100 years old.
Um, have it be that he was also captured by this evil sorceress and
And
uh,
given, you know,
given eternal life or something.
okay, yeah, that could work. Yeah.
But we've beaten around the bush enough.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this movie starts with an exposition dump.
Hmm.
I believe that it's our good pal Russell Crowe.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which in this movie he fights around the world in England and also I guess he doesn't ever actually go to Iraq.
No, he doesn't. He sends the chick to Iraq, the blonde chick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so he gives the exposition dump about oh here's the origin of the mummy and
Yeah. And
this woman was a great warrior. Uh, Put a
yeah.
chick in it, make her lame.
And yeah.
I don't say gay because she is clearly hot for Tom Cruise in this movie. But
Oh yeah. And I have something to say about that when we get to it. But yeah, go on.
she was a great warrior, and her dad was the pharaoh, and she was the heir. But then his second wife conceived a son, and she was going to be left out. Um, Now, I'm reasonably certain that depending on which dynasty you're looking at,
Mhm.
women couldn't actually become pharaoh. I
Yeah.
think Hatshepsut was, if I'm remembering her name right, was like the one exception.
Mm.
You know what? Let me just double check myself. Like even Cleopatra was not a pharaoh; she was technically a queen, I believe.
Yeah, she was a queen. Um,
Uh,
yeah.
Hatshepsut
Hatshepsut.
was the great royal wife. Da, 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 da. Then as queen regent, she was queen regent. Okay, so she might not have actually ever been pharaoh.
Okay.
But anyways, women like yeah, I'm noticing the term queen regent, which basically just means hey, ruling until your kid is old enough to take the throne.
Yeah.
But like she was about to get. I'm reading some Egyptian history. There were many times there was a female ruler of Egypt through many of the dynasties, right? But they wouldn't technically be pharaoh.
Yeah.
Difference between being the queen mother the and the king or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so she had this mad plan, and she killed her father and his wife and her brother, and she was going to kill her lover to seal the deal with the dark forces, but then she was caught before she could stab him in the chest and
Mhm.
complete the and complete
The
the dark
ritual. Yeah.
ritual. And she
Yeah.
was mummified alive, which it seems so much cooler in the Brendan Fraser version
Yeah. The Brendan Fraser version was a lot better.
because it's basically the same story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just they
Yeah.
just they
Yeah.
put a chick in it and made it lame.
Made it lame. Yeah. Yeah, because the Brendan Fraser one was more in line with the original Boris Karloff one, where he was a Egyptian priest and he was having an affair with the pharaoh's lady, and uh, she gets killed, and he tries to bring her back to life, and doesn't work, and then he gets mummified alive and cursed, and yeah.
Yep. Cut to the present day. Tom Cruise is a grave robbing asshole.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he's with his buddy. Was it Vale was his name?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And Cruz's name was Morton. And I remember watching uh, your boy Zach trying to do a review of this, although he didn't watch it all the way through.
So we outdid Zach, I guess.
Yeah. And so what he was saying was that like Cruz's character is a sergeant, and then his buddy is a corporal. He said in reality, Cruz's character would be like in his mid 20s,
Hmm.
and his buddy would be like 18 or 19. Tom Cruise, by the way, is not in his mid 20s, and
Uh,
his buddy is not an 18 or 19-year old.
no. So their grave or their tomb raiding around Iraq, they
Mhm.
have some ISIS agents there shooting up some stuff so that they look like the good guys,
Yeah,
and they are hundred. They're derelicting their duty. They're 100 miles away from where they're supposed to be, and they call in a drone strike when they get themselves in trouble.
Yes, and then the superior shows up, gives him a reaming, and he's like, "Yeah, I know what scam you got. Yeah, I'm onto your scam, guys. Come on." And
Right.
then this uh, scientist lady, the that I mentioned before, shows up and find out that she and Cruz had a little fling, and
They
then
hooked up.
he yeah, and he stole her map, the one that she got from Russell Crowe, and then they see that the drone strike created this huge hole in the village, leading down into a chasm with a big statue in it, an Egyptian statue. Which, keep in mind, this is Iraq. This is
Yes.
Mesopotamia, not Egypt.
Yeah, we looked up a map of the maximum extent of the Egyptian Empire back in the old days, and there were that their maximum extent they might have extended into northern Iraq. They didn't have it wasn't one of those helpful maps where they had the modern country borders overlaid on it.
Yeah,
But that's a hell of a stretch,
yeah, yeah.
especially okay. It's one of those things where that whole like we know from the Bible and other sources that that whole area in the Levant and beyond, like you didn't hold it for long. Like a pharaoh would go up there and he would kick out the Hittites, or then the
Yeah,
Hittites would come back, and then the Assyrians would roll in, and then
yeah. Yeah, Ninja says they never got that far. They couldn't have done
yeah,
modern
it,
Israel.
it
Yeah.
kind of looked like it kind of looked like Syria maybe,
Yeah.
which I guess that what did they no they did it they did specifically say it was Iraq, right?
They no they I thought they said northern Iraq.
Okay. So that I based on the map I saw, that's like in the realm of mild plausibility though. What I was going to say is that they weren't up there long enough to really like any of these Bronze Age empires that were trading this area back and forth probably weren't there long enough to make like really elaborate memorials like they would in
Yeah.
their homeland.
Yeah, or yeah, or build a giant chasm where they are imprisoning this Egyptian warrior princess for all eternity.
Yep. So the three of them go down there to investigate, and I'm immediately thinking to myself, man, you kind of rushed the romance plot there, and you kind of everyone just kind of hates each other.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is really unpleasant.
Yeah, they skipped about 20 minutes. There's probably about 20 minutes in there that they just kind of like cut out of it entirely and just jumped to this point.
Okay, so Holy Ninja
For the
is
largest extent of the Egyptian Empire was before the Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE. The farthest they got was Canaan, aka modern Israel, Jordan, and Lebanon. Okay.
okay. So they did not go into modern Iraq. So I guess they asked their good buddies, the Neo Assyrians or whoever, to let them put their problem there.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you call it? So they go down there, and oh no, there's a big pit full of mercury,
Hmm.
and there's mercury dripping from the ceiling. Which, boy, good thing he was wearing gloves, and I hope that Tom Cruise didn't accidentally touch any actual mercury in the filming of that, because that could mess you up.
Yeah.
And they are poking around, and he shoots a thing to activate a pulley to pull this sarcophagus out of the pool of mercury. And I'm very bored and uninterested because they haven't done the work to actually like make me care about what these characters are doing. Because
Yeah.
the situation is either Tom is going to try and sell this on the black market like he has everything else he's found,
Hmm.
or he's going to try and or he's being forced to actually act like a good soldier and help this science lady out.
Yeah. And
Stakes,
it's
what are those?
yeah. And I know, and then his buddy gets bitten by a spider, and then
Yeah.
at first they tell him, "Oh, they're not poisonous," but then they get out of there, and then they get on the plane, and he sure doesn't looking too good.
Yep. And then he turns into a zombie, and in a weirdly comedic scene, considering that Tom Cruise is killing his best friend, he shoots him multiple times to stop him.
Yeah, yeah, that was very, very strange. Uh,
Um, and then they end up in England, and it turns out we skipped a part about where they found an ancient Crusader, um,
oh yeah, in England, yeah,
an ancient Crusader tomb in England.
yeah. Uh, Ninja. Okay, Ninja brings up a good point. Asks, why would the Egyptians have a police system for a sarcophagus that they want to be at the bottom of the Mercury Lake?
Don't know.
I don't know. Perfect response.
Um, so yeah, there was this like Crusader tomb, and they found half of this MacGuffin that they need to revive the mummy.
Yeah, it's a red gem that was
That
taken
goes into
during
a scabbard.
right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's really got all of the hallmarks of a J.J. Abrams acolyte movie. You've got a MacGuffin that they have to find. Characters
Hmm.
aren't established. Everybody is just kind of sarcastic and hates each other. Inappropriate moments of comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course yeah, and like you were saying before, the mummy, Amanette is her name. She's got the hots for Tom Cruise, because she wants to use him as the vessel for her beloved,
Yeah.
which is basically just, yeah, like the original Mummy, except they just swapped out the genders.
Yep.
And they okay, so the Kurtzman and whoever else wrote this movie had obviously seen Life Force, which, if you've never heard of that movie before, I completely understand. It's kind of an obscure movie, from the 80s. Uh, it was directed by Toby Hooper, who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre and
Mm,
Poltergeist. It's about a space vampire lady, that these astronauts find, and she's only on screen for like 12 minutes, but she's naked for most of it. Uh, and I think the actress who played her at the time, she was like 18 or 19, and like the commander of the space shuttle that finds her, like they have this psychic connection, like Tom Cruise and the Mummy in this movie.
mm.
And the age difference between the two actors is about the same as the age difference
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, since he can get into her head, she makes him keep. Like they're trying to escape from her after she's revived, and he
Yeah.
drives right back to where she is, and all seems lost when suddenly the dark universe invades.
Yes, yeah, and
Hey, Daniel, remember
yeah.
that part in or remember that part in the original Thor movie
Mhm.
where Thor is completely at the mercy of Loki. And then halfway through the movie, Shield shows up, having been introduced a little bit, and they proceed to demonstrate that they have weapons that can capture and take down Loki with very little effort. And then they have a 20-minute exposition dump about what Shield is and the
Yeah.
why Samuel L. Jackson is a bad mother effer. And
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause that's basically what this movie does, just with Russell Crowe as the most boring Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde ever committed to cinema.
Yes, and I'll also add in, you also forgot Jane Foster was working for Shield the entire time. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. um, but uh, but yeah, they get to that point, and they're keeping the mummy chained up, and it's just, you pointed this out on Discord. When they get to when you get to that point in the movie, it just stops.
Yep.
It just grinds to a halt.
'Cause, I mean, it looks like the good guys have won. Mercury is apparently the weakness of the mummy. They're giving her a drip feed of mercury in preparation for dissecting her, which the blonde is opposed to for some reason.
Yes. And they also want to kill Tom Cruise because reasons.
Because he's psychically connected to her.
Yeah,
and and Russell Crowe proceeds to overact a bit about this thing where he has to keep injecting himself with anti-insanity particles,
yes, and then Tom Cruise takes away the anti-insanity particles, and then Jekyll turns into Hyde, and
uh,
apparently Jekyll and Hyde have different fingerprints.
which, if it was like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and he was basically a giant Hulk type monster, I could
Mhm.
buy that, but he doesn't really look all that different.
No, it's just his skin gets paler and his eyes change color. That's about it.
Ooh. And they have a very boring fight scene because by this point, we forgot to mention this earlier. Tom
Mhm.
Cruise is basically Wolverine with like a hyper healing factor because of the magic that has infected him.
Right. Yeah, because the plane that they were on with the sarcophagus crashes, and he somehow survives it without a scratch on him.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, oh no, and also too another movie this movie borrows from was An American Werewolf in London, specifically when his dead buddy, he keeps seeing his dead friend everywhere in his head, and his body is really decrepit, which happens in American Werewolf in London. Only in that movie, the guy's friend, his body just keeps decaying more and more the more often he shows up. It's they did it better in that movie than they did in this movie.
Well, I'm starting to think that this movie didn't do anything well at all.
Mm,
But that would
yeah,
be crazy.
yeah. Um,
So, the- um, to kind of just wrap it up, there proceed to be some big, expensive CGI chases as the evil mummy tries to capture Tom Cruise and the blonde. Because of
mhm.
course the mummy escapes. Why wouldn't the mummy escape? As much as the plot stopped at the second act, you couldn't actually have Shield win the day.
Right. Yeah. And then yeah, so then they have this whole destruction scene in London where okay, I will say this, that was a little clever when she's pulling the sand out of the glass. That was a little clever.
I completely forgot about that, so I guess I lost the. Um, So yeah, and then they end up in this catacomb, and oh, what will Tom Cruise do? And it looks like he falls to the dark side, but it was a trick,
Yeah, yeah,
and but he kills the mummy, and oh, he's so sad and tortured. And Russell Crowe and the blonde had the most on the nose discussion about the duality of man. He could be humankind's greatest ally
yeah.
because he and his newly revived friend, because I guess Tom Cruise can do that now,
Yeah, yeah.
um, are off in the desert looking to raid more tombs.
Yeah.
The end.
The end.
They didn't even copy the Marvel War formula properly because there wasn't like an end credit scene with a werewolf or something.
Yeah. Although it got cute Godzilla rap. Although the scene when they go to their shield place, you saw they had a bunch of Easter eggs in there, like
Yeah,
the
like they had pieces of the thing for the Black Lagoon.
yeah the skull with the fangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so the movie itself is just like the most weirdly lifeless thing I've seen in ages.
yeah. I I you know I mentioned this in Discord. Like, okay, I saw a goof in the movie, which by the way, I don't see goofs in movies on my first viewing. It usually takes about 3 or 4 viewings before I notice those.
Hmm.
So, the goof I noticed was the reading glasses that Russell Crowe had on his
Oh yeah.
nose. It's like in one shot they would be kinda on the bridge of his nose, and then another shot they'd be like way down here on the tip, and they kept going back and forth.
See, I have this theory that a lot of the like a lot of things like plot holes or whatever, if you're noticing them, that's because the movie has not done a good job casting its spell on you.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of movies I enjoyed the first time out there. A second viewing, I was like, wait a second, that makes no sense.
Yes. Yeah.
The Hulk last week was actually an example of where a critical re-examination made me wonder what I was thinking 20 years ago.
Yes, and I will say, and speaking of Kurtzman, I did that with Star Trek Into Darkness. When
Mhm.
I remember, like, the first time I watched that movie, I enjoyed it, and then when I on repeat viewing, I'm like, okay, well, why did Khan go to Kronos? Why are they doing that? Like,
Mhm.
what's what's the point of this?
Yeah. Um, and so this movie is just it's weirdly boring, and it feels like it shouldn't be boring.
Yeah, and it's boring, and it's just like like you're saying, like there wasn't enough time for us to get invested in the characters.
Right. Like, I didn't they have like a vague explanation for why Tom Cruise is a Tomb Raider? Like his wife was dead or something, or am I imagining a better plot?
I think you're imagining a better plot.
Yeah, like okay, that's right. I think I did actually start trying to rewrite this because yeah, that's what I see is like the value of watching a bad movie is like, okay, how do you do the same thing, but better? Like,
Yeah,
okay, you know what's weird? The only character who got any development really,
yeah,
um, okay, the mummy arguably since she was like like she had a goal,
hmm,
but like Russell Crowe got so much loving character development in this movie.
yeah,
Tom Cruise kind of had a half-assed, tortured the Hulk type thing at the end of the movie once he
yeah,
become the mummy
yeah.
or
But yeah,
or Seth or whatever you want to call him.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, at least with like somebody like even like Brendan Fraser's character in his Mummy, like you at least got some idea of like okay, yeah, he was a French Foreign Legion, and then
Mhm.
he went out into the desert, and his partner screwed him over, and
Right.
you know,
Well, and also you had stakes that were clear. Like, okay, if the wrong people find this thing, it's game over, and there was a chance that they could stop people from finding this thing.
yeah,
And in that movie, there were like treachery, alliances,
yeah,
and also the general tone of it was much lighter in most of it,
yeah,
which meant that you could have comedic characters like the one kind of Weasley guy who
yeah,
uh, was like kept who like was the like who had like all the religious icons he would hold up.
right, yeah, yeah. And he wore the fez, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
um, this shows how uncultured I am. He actually really reminded me of the character Dijon from the DuckTales.
Yeah, he did.
Similar sort of archetype,
Yeah,
but but in this movie there was like they would keep having these lighthearted moments that like, why are you joking? Like, why is it funny that you just shot your best friend a third time because you were scared?
yeah,
Because that's how that shot was framed.
yeah. That whole scene was so dumb. I was just it was it was tone deaf, and yeah, just
Uh, It's like what you need to do is you need to cut. Like, okay, if you have to start the Dark Universe,
yeah.
Russell Crowe shows up at the end of the movie.
Hmm.
Uh, hey, good job handling that mummy thing. Uh,
Yeah.
the-
Hey, who are you? I'm Henry Jekyll.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like you do that, and you let Tom Cruise be the character. You give him like a good motivation. Okay, okay, okay. You either give him a good motivation for why he's out there tomb raiding,
Hmm.
because like they gave a little bit of it because they had some, basically were ISIS people out there shooting up these ancient artifacts.
Yeah.
So I could even say like a Han Solo type where he's like super cynical. It's like, look, man, either I get paid or they get blown up. I'm not running a charity here.
Yeah.
If Bill Gates wants to have I'm trying to think of if Bill Gates wants to have a stone statue of Isis, the goddess Isis, sitting
Mm.
in his boardroom, then who might a judge better
Yeah,
than it
yeah,
being lost completely?
yeah.
Like, you never had a scene like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it was almost like they were trying to have Tom Cruise be the Robert Downey Jr. of this universe, but they didn't give him the proper motivation.
Yeah, and you can kind of see why Tom would take this role because the whole like he never really gets to play like a tortured anti-hero. He's usually, at least in my experience, he's usually more straightforward than that.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Like Maverick, for example. So
yeah,
like being kind of a Hulk slash Wolverine type where he's has this monster within that he's battling. That I could see it being appealing to an actor,
yeah,
and he does his gamest with this part.
yeah. Yeah, I won't fault him for you know for this movie's problems. I mean, he did the best he could with what he had.
Yeah, it's just much a bunch of sound and fury signifying nothing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah,
Uh, and we see why. Also, I see why this movie did pretty decently internationally when I looked it up. Uh, because there's a lot of action movies out there where um, not being able to understand what's going on and not necessarily having it be dubbed in the local language can only help this movie because
yeah,
you're just watching the action beats.
yeah. Pretty much. Yeah.
But I think we've flogged this thing enough. We know why the Dark Universe did not become a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so now we've gotten our vegetables out of the way, let's talk about something that's actually worth people's time.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we saw this movie on Netflix and thought, oh, this looks interesting. It's Old Dads with directed and starring Bill Burr.
Yep.
Um,
Um, it's also starring Bobby Cannavale and Bokeem Woodbine, which I gotta say, Bokeem Woodbine might be one of the coolest names I've ever heard. I wasn't really familiar with him before this one, but uh, I'm a fan of him now.
yeah, I've seen him in a few movies.
He
He's
looks
one of
familiar.
these. Yeah, he's one of those character actors who just pops up and in a lot of different movies. He's usually playing like military or
Okay.
cop. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But yeah, so this one we're not going to belabor because unlike the last one, because this is actually a good movie, and
yeah.
by the nature of it being a comedy, we don't want to recount too many of the moments because that will spoil them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the movie follows Bill Burr's character Jack. It's basically Bill Burr playing himself. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, he's a middle-aged guy with a young family. He has a son, a preschool age son, and his wife is about to have another baby. And he and his two buddies here. What? God, I can't remember their names.
And we can just refer them by actor names.
Okay. Yeah. So his friends Bobby and Bokeem are they own a sports jersey company where they make retro sports jerseys, but then they end up having to sell the company out because Bill Burr wants to send his kid to private school,
Hmm.
and but they sell it to some like Silicon Valley tech company, and but they
From the investing geniuses who brought you WeWork.
yes. Yeah, and but the new company just agrees to keep them on. And of course, they Burr immediately clashes with the new owner because he's this hipster millennial, d bag, and well, what's funny too is Bobby, is his buddy. His buddy, he's always trying to act cool with the millennials and the Gen
Oh,
Zers.
he especially gets weird around black people.
Yeah,
Like, because like so all these men are in their 40s and they all are handling it in different ways.
Yeah.
Like Bill has settled down. He always wanted to be a dad, and as he put it, it just took me till I was 46.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, why did it take me till it was 46? F you.
Yeah. Um, Bobby on the right, he is ruled by his well, to use an old-fashioned term, his shrew of a wife,
Yes.
and he's struggling with basically living in fear.
Yeah.
Um, and Bokeem uh, is living kind of what I would call the R pill life, where yeah, he had his two kids, divorced his wife at some point, got a vasectomy, and he's banging a woman 20 to 30 years younger than him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and so he's happy,
Mhm.
um, and until she turns up pregnant. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
but it's basically them being out of step with the world, especially Bill, because
Yeah.
the other two, especially Bobby, he's very whipped,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
um, and Bokeem is just kind of quiet and can get along.
Yeah.
But Bill is the opinionated one, like as you would expect from a Bill Burr
Yeah.
character in a movie written by Bill Burr.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, um, and it's very transgressive humor where it's just like he's poking at everything,
Mhm.
and he's living in Southern California. He's dealing with like a somewhat rightish guys parody version of, but not too exaggerated version of what that culture is like.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the conflicts he's dealing with is at his son's preschool. The principal of said school is a total, touchy feely, you know.
Yeah, but also like a weirdly control freak. Right? Yeah. There's a fine for every minute
Yeah.
you're late picking up your kid.
Right. Yeah. 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 She's very, very left leaning, but at the same time, she's also very strict
and
disciplinary.
and, and
It's
money grubbing.
and money grubbing. Yes.
Like the constant obsession with money from her.
Yeah. Uh, and I can't remember the name of the actress, but I've seen her in other movies. She's very good at playing passive aggressive bitches.
Yeah, no, that everyone in this movie is well cast for their roles.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so here's where just I think it makes sense to like kind of stop talking about the plot so much because
Yeah.
it follows a very classic guys comedy thing,
Mhm.
like vaguely reminiscent of things like I don't know Hangover or whatever, which is the- these
Yeah.
these guys getting themselves in fairly ridiculous situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the third act. Yeah.
Yeah, although it's also like you can tell this thing was made on a budget because yeah, it's not like they don't go too crazy. It's not
Right.
like there's no Tiger, there's no Mike Tyson, there's no.
You're right. Yeah.
Um, uh, now I've seen some debates online about is this just faux conservative? Is this like actually crypto woke or whatever? And I kind of feel like the people who are calling it crypto woke are kind of ignoring the message of the movie,
Yeah.
which is it's okay to be out of touch with the crazies around you,
Yeah.
but being angry and lashing out at people all the time is not going to help anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of a you have to learn how to deal with it or learn how to handle it in a constructive manner. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I would give this a recommend. It's on Netflix. It's
Yeah.
kind of a shame they didn't put it out in theaters because I think this could have actually done pretty well with the right marketing because people like Bill Burr.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I watched Film Thread's review of this earlier today, and they agreed. They're like they should have put this movie in theaters. It could have. could have made some decent change off of it. And Ninja says, no wonder the people who called it crypto woke. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Right. Like there are some people who have taken so many red pills that um, a guy doing anything nice for a woman in a movie means that he's being henpecked
yeah,
when like it's you're missing the point. You're supposed to be complimentary.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Bill Burr basically has to learn how to become a better person, so a better man, so he could be a better dad and a better husband.
Right.
Yeah,
And they make it clear at the end he hasn't really changed.
yeah,
He's just good at putting up a good face when he
yeah.
has to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I give this movie a recommend too. It is definitely an hard R rated movie. I mean, it's
Yep.
got some
You do get to see some boobies.
it's yeah, you get to see some movies, and there's some very harsh language in there.
Yep.
The the see you next Tuesday word gets uttered.
Yep. And yeah, if you're the type to get offended, I would actually say watch it because you need to learn that words aren't violence.
Right. Yeah.
But if I suppose if you're trying to enjoy yourself, uh, this rather than toughen up, which
Yeah.
man, I'm already sounding like Bill Burr in this movie. Maybe it's a bad influence after all.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, if you are easily offended, then this isn't going to be your jam.
Yeah.
But if you're just somebody who thinks of themselves as having common sense and you're tired of dealing with certain certain weirdnesses in your professional and social life, then this will give you a good laugh.
Indeed. Yes. Well, I think we've said all we need to say for
Right?
tonight.
It's funny. It's funny. It's the bad movies that require the plot breakdown. It's the good movies that we don't have to go into exhaustive detail on.
Yeah, yeah. You're correct on that.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's part of why I had this theory that part of the reason that negativity or sells so much on YouTube is that it's always I always find it harder to defend something I like than something I don't like.
Yeah.
Because like if you watch an action movie where an action sequence is just awful,
Mhm.
it's much easier to break down why that's awful than to explain why I don't know, like that the boys type, not the boys, old dog. No, remember
The
there was like some action movie that uh, in the Turtles movie where that one shot action scene was
oh,
Old Boys. No,
Old Boy.
Old Boy.
Old
Thank you.
Boy. Yeah.
Just could not think of the name of it. Like,
Yeah.
but like explaining why Old Boy has good action scenes is like it's it usually sounds less convincing unless you're actually an expert.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between I can tell you that that train that crashed is a bad train, but I can't tell you why a monorail is better than a steam engine.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well,
Well,
yeah.
well, next week we imagine we'll have the Marvels to flog, but until then,
Yes, until then, yeah, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it as always.
yep,
Hit that like button. Uh, Ring the bell for notifications. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter, because we're
yep.
also broadcasting on my Twitter page. And we will see you next week. Good night,
Yep.
everybody.
Later, guys.